Meet I Am Hojo. After 80 years of dedicating every second of his life to the sword, he's finally hit the end of the road. But even on his deathbed, he's filled with regret. To him, his mastery over the blade still feels unfinished. He looks out over the carnage of his final battle, wishing he could have reached the endless heights just beyond his grasp. Covered in blood, he sits alone, waiting for the cold embrace of death to finally take him. Even as his life fades, his grip on his katana never wavers, a true warrior to his very last breath. But things take a sudden turn as we flash forward to a much younger I Am standing in a dark forest. This young version of him is currently shielding a terrified student from some bad news. A squad of elite mages from a reconnaissance squad surrounds them, and they clearly aren't here for a friendly chat. Their captain looks at I Am with pure disgust, mocking him for trying to fight magic with a mere sword. He decides to teach him a lesson and starts charging up a massive blue magic circle. The girl screams for him to run, but I Am just calmly places his hand on his hilt. A second later, a barrage of lethal ice shards comes flying at them with pinpoint accuracy. I Am finally moves, and it's a blur. He doesn't just block the shards, he starts slicing them into dust. His blade is moving so fast that the magic can't even touch him, let alone the girl he's protecting. The mages are absolutely stunned. In their world, a sword shouldn't even be able to graze a heal spell. Panicking, the captain screams for his squad to coordinate and launch their ultimate move, Avalanche. A massive explosion of ice and energy consumes the area, turning the forest into a frozen wasteland. One of the mages is shaking with fear, wondering how a lowly swordsman is pulling any of this off. But when the smoke clears, I Am is standing there unscathed, having cut through the magic itself. The captain loses his mind, yelling at his squad to finish him off before his ego takes any more damage. He summons massive ice structures to trap them, but I Am just stares him down with piercing red eyes. He finally draws his weapon, calling out the name of his blade, Amashiki, Heavenator Release. A massive pillar of light erupts from his sword, completely vaporizing the mag's spells in one go. The reconnaissance squad can only watch in silence, as their superior magic is easily dismantled. I Am walks away like it was nothing, leaving the mages to question everything they know about combat. In this world, magic is everything, and swordsmen are considered bottom-tier trash. But as I Am levels his blade at them, he asks a simple question. You still want to keep going? These mages had no clue that his swordsmanship was something that could transcend magic itself. Back in the void between life and death, old man I Am wakes up, wondering if he's dreaming. He finds himself floating in the middle of nowhere as a mysterious woman's voice calls out to him. He comes face to face with a beautiful lady who seems way too happy to see a dead guy. He asks who she is, and she casually reveals that he's currently talking to a god. She goes by the name Little Goddess, and she's got a special offer just for him. I Am is genuinely surprised. Meeting a deity face to face isn't exactly how he expected his day to end. She tells him that since he transcended human limits, his soul has earned the right to ascend. Basically, she's offering him a one-way ticket to paradise. She describes it as a perfect utopia where you can have every form of happiness without any effort. But I Am has one condition. He asks her straight up, is there a sword there? When she tells him there's no conflict and no weapons, Soul starts to reflect his younger self. The goddess is shocked. She asks if he's really turning down heaven just for a weapon. I Am tells her that he lived by the sword and he'll die by it. Even death doesn't change who he is. The goddess just smirks, clearly amused by how stubborn this old warrior really is. The little goddess just smiles, not surprised at all by his refusal. She knew he wouldn't go for a peaceful heaven. Instead, she suggests reincarnation, moving his soul into a brand new body in another world. She starts the process, and we see his soul plummeting toward a vibrant green world far below. As a special parting gift, she even lets him take his demon blade along for the ride. IMA is a bit suspicious of how easy this is, but she tells him the gods are always looking for humans with potential. With a final, now go, she sends the old warrior's soul hurtling into his next great adventure. But right as he leaves, her expression changes. She forgot to mention one tiny little detail about his destination. The place he's headed to is Magiheim, a world where magic is considered the absolute supreme power. In a world that despises swordsmen, she's curious to see how far this old master can actually grow. Back on the ground, I Am wakes up and he's actually excited for the challenge. He finds himself in a sun-drenched forest, leaning back against a massive tree. He immediately checks his side and is relieved to find that his blade made the trip safely. He grips the hilt of his old friend, feeling ready to face whatever this new life throws his way. He notices his body feels young and full of energy again, though his new outfit is definitely not what he's used to. He stands up and takes in his surroundings, wondering exactly what kind of place Maji really is. His first priorities are food and shelter, but deep down, he's already hoping for a rival who can actually push him. Suddenly, a girl's scream echoes through the trees, cutting through the peaceful morning air. Without hesitating for a second, he takes off toward the sound to see who's in trouble. He can't believe how light and fast his new body is as he practically flies through the forest. He reaches a clearing and finds a girl cornered by a pack of vicious-looking creatures. A group of manowolves has a student trapped, and they're moving in for the kill. One of the beasts lunges with its jaws wide open, ready to tear her apart. The girl closes her eyes and cries out, completely paralyzed by the sight of the monster. But before the wolf can land, I draws his blade in a flash of steel. The wolf's head is sliced clean off before it even realizes it's dead. His movement is so fast, it's almost impossible to see, leaving nothing but a spray of blood behind. He calmly sheathes part of his blade, noting that it was a pretty unusual-looking wolf. The girl looks up at him, her eyes wide with total disbelief. She asks who on earth he is. M just wipes the blood off his katana, acting like he didn't just pull off a master-level move. He simply tells her he's a samurai as he stares down the rest of the pack. She's never even heard that word before, but he tells her she's still in danger and offers to lend a hand. The other wolves aren't backing down and surround him, thinking they still have the numbers. Hayam doesn't wait for them to attack. He lunges forward, cutting through multiple wolves in a single pass. He's a blur of motion, turning the pack into a gory mess in just a few heartbeats. Heads fly and blood spatters everywhere as he systematically dismantles the entire group. He stands in a relaxed stance, asking the remaining wolves if they've really had enough yet. Terrified by the sheer speed of his kills, the survivors turn tail and bolt into the forest. Ayam turns back to the girl, calmly, asking if she's hurt or if she's able to stand up. Still in total shock, she reaches out a hand and confirms that she's okay. She thanks him over and over, clearly overwhelmed by what just happened. She tells him he's the most incredible swordsman she's ever seen, but he just says he's still got a long way to go. She's baffled by his modesty, noting that swordsmen are so rare in this world that his presence is a total shock. Ayam is visibly taken aback, asking her how it's even possible for swordsmen to be such a rare sight. Seeing his intense reaction, Luna nervously wonders if he's a traveler from a distant land since he looks so different. She gestures toward the horizon, explaining that things work a bit differently here in the kingdom of Arcadia. She explains that because magic is considered the ultimate art, the way of the sword has been almost entirely abandoned. The harsh reality finally hits Ayam as he remembers the goddess's warning about this world being cold to those who choose the blade. Luna explains that in the kingdom of Arcadia, magic is king and swordsmanship has pretty much become a lost art. Ayam takes it all in, realizing that in this world, his life's work is basically considered a relic. She confirms his suspicion while staring at the blade hanging from his belt. Surprisingly, the idea of an unknown power like magic actually gets Ayam's blood pumping. Since he saved her life, Luna offers to show him around the royal capital as a thank you. He accepts the tour and finally introduces himself as Ayam. The two of them shake on it, as she officially gives him her name. As they start walking, he asks where they are, and she tells him they're currently in the Great Arcadia Forest. She warns him that even powerful mages can end up dead here, which makes her wonder why he was wandering through it alone. Luna gets a bit embarrassed, admitting she was out here looking for a specific material she really needed. She shows him a bit of her support magic, but she's still just a rookie and knows she can't handle the forest by herself. Ayam suggests that if her magic is for support, she probably needs a strong partner to take the front lines. That hits a sore spot and Luna goes quiet, clearly not want to talk about her former party situation. She quickly changes the subject, asking Ayam where exactly he traveled from. He tells her he's from the east. As they continue their trek toward the city, he explains that he's on a journey to perfect his sword skills. And deep down, he knows it's the truth. Luna is genuinely shocked that he's handling a journey like that all by himself. They finally clear the trees, and she points out the capital just ahead. The royal capital is massive, protected by high stone walls that look almost impenetrable. They reach the entrance where the huge gates are locked tight with magical seals. A guard in heavy armor stops them, asking for identification that Ayam doesn't think he has. He checks his clothes and finds a card he doesn't recognize, wondering if the god has slipped it to him. He hands it over, and the guard is surprised to see someone from as far away as the Far East. Everything looks good, so the guard gives the okay to open the gates. He warns him to stand back because the door is incredibly heavy, but Ayam just steps right up to it. He places a hand on the wood, casually mentioning that it doesn't feel that heavy to him. With a single push, he shoves the massive gate open, leaving the guard and Luna in a cloud of dust. He turns back with a smile, wondering why they're both just staring at him like that. The guard is completely stunned, explaining that these gates were built to be opened by magic, not physical strength. Ayam just laughs it off, saying it's not a problem if you put in enough physical training. The guard can't wrap his head around someone moving that much weight with just one hand. He tells him to stay out of trouble, though it's clear he's more intimidated than anything. As they walk away, the guard thinks about his own lack of magic and how harsh the capital is for someone without it. He knows a swordsman is going to have a rough time in a city that values spells over steel. Inside, the atmosphere is completely different, and Ima quickly notices he's the only one in the crowd with a sword. Luna leads the way through the streets, heading toward her house. Everywhere they go, the townspeople can't help but stare at the guy with the outdated weapon. A couple of guys start laughing as they walk by, calling him an idiot for even carrying a blade. They finally make it to her place, and she warns him it's a little cramped inside. Ayami steps in and looks around, asking if her parents are home. She tells him they're out working for the day and heads off to get some tea ready. She comes back with a hot cup, keeping things simple as they finally get a chance to sit down. I says the price of the tea doesn't matter. What's valuable is that Luna served it herself. She immediately starts blushing, clearly caught off guard by the compliment. He takes a moment to enjoy the unique aroma of the country's black tea. Luna is just glad it's actually to his taste, and moves on to a bigger question, wanting to know what exactly Mahim means. She explains that it's a society where magic is the law of the land, and their kingdom is the prime example. She points out that as a swordsman with low magic power, he's going to find a world a very cold place. It's not just the elites either. Even the commoners look down on people who carry blades. Ayam isn't discouraged, though, figuring any adversity is just another reason to keep training. Luna is taken aback by how strong and straightforward he is. She thinks about asking for his help, but then stops herself, not wanting to drag a new friend into her mess. Ayam mentions he needs to find a way to make a living, and asks if there's any physical work where a sword might be useful. Luna suggests he register as an adventurer like she did, taking on monster hunts and material gathering for pay. She offers to take him to the guild right now, and he's more than happy to go along. They arrive in a massive building, the Adventurers Guild, which seems to be the heart of the city's activity. Inside, the place is packed, but Ayam quickly realizes he's still the only one without a staff or a wand. He walks up to the desk and tells the receptionist he's there to sign up. She tells him anyone can join, but notices right away that he doesn't exactly fit the mage mold. Since he doesn't know magic, she agrees to register him as a swordsman. Before anything else, he has to place his hand on a crystal ball to gauge his magic power. She explains that while most start at Frank, a high enough power reading can let you skip a few steps. Ima does as he's told and puts his hand on the orb. For a split second, the crystal flares with an intense yellow light, surprising the receptionist, but it immediately goes dark, leaving her to conclude there was no real reaction at all. She sighs, explaining that his magic power must be incredibly low, which is going to be a problem. She warns him that his job options are going to be extremely limited without any spells. The other adventurers in the room start laughing at him, calling him a pathetic brute for carrying a stick around. Luna can only watch in silence, seeing firsthand how much contempt people have for swordsmen. Ayami realizes this is the true face of a magic supremacist world. He turns to the guys making fun of him and calmly asks for a moment of their time. He looks them over and asks if magic is really that much better than everything else. They think he's mocking them and decide to show this savage exactly how powerful they are. One of the guys doesn't hold back, casting a massive fireball right at Ayam's face. The fire roars toward him, but Ayam just stands his ground, looking completely unfazed. He reaches out his hand as if he's just reaching for something on a shelf. With a casual flick of his wrist, he swats the fireball away, leaving everyone in the guild stunned. He's genuinely impressed, calling the magic splendid, while noting that his fighting spirit works just fine against it. He gives the terrified mage a friendly pat on the shoulder and thanks him for the lesson. Then he turns back to the receptionist and offers a quick apology for the commotion. She's in complete shock, asking if he somehow has the power to nullify magic. He just explains that he put a little fighting spirit into his hand to brush the fire aside, which only leaves her more confused. She doesn't quite get it, but she hands over his new adventurer card anyway, telling him it doubles as his ID. The receptionist points out the quest board, explaining that he can earn rewards by clearing dungeons and collecting rare monster materials. Ayam takes his new card, listening as she explains that his rank will rise along with his contributions to the capital. She gives him a polite bow, wishing him good fortune on his future battles. Luna is relieved the registration went smoothly, even with the earlier commotion. But as they prepare to leave, a sudden hush falls over the crowd, and people begin to whisper in awe. A group of mages enters the hall, led by Lord Carter, an elite from a house second only to the 5 elemental families. The onlookers gossip about Carter's overwhelming presence and his guaranteed spot in the Royal Mage Corps. Carter stops in his tracks, his eyes narrowing as he senses something out of the ordinary. He spots the pair across the room, his gaze fixed on Luna as he asks if she's reconsidered their previous discussion. Luna's face pales and a cold sweat breaks out, her voice trembling as she whispers his name. Lord Eric corners Luna, asking if she's finally given some thought to their discussion. Luna looks completely trapped, barely able to meet his eyes. She stammers that she's still thinking it over, clearly just trying to get away. Iam steps right between them, asking if the noble needs something from her. Eric is stunned by the interference, especially when he sees the sword at the guy's hip. Iam doesn't back down, bluntly, confirming that yes, he's a swordsman. Eric just bursts out laughing, mocking the idea of someone using a blade in this day and age. He and his crew find it hilarious that a barbarian thinks he can be an adventurer. He leans in close, calling Iam talentless trash with zero magic power. Eric goes on a rant about how swordsmen are useless compared to mages who can clear monsters from a distance. He tells Iam that trash belongs in the bin, not in a guild. Iam stays perfectly calm, which only seems to irritate the noble more. Eric's face twists in anger when he realizes his status doesn't intimidate this newcomer at all. Iam casually mentions he's new to the country and doesn't know or care who the guy is. That's the breaking point. Eric sneers that it's time to teach him what happens when you defy a noble. Luna jumps in desperately, trying to de-escalate the situation by apologizing for IMA. She begs for forgiveness, but Eric isn't interested in an apology. He tells her he'll let the whole thing slide if she just agrees to his previous demand. Iam ignores the noble's terms, asking if mages just naturally enjoy trampling over people. The mages are stunned by his boldness, and the air in the guild grows heavy. One of his lackeys decides to act first, launching a flame bullet straight at Iam's head. Iam doesn't even move as the fire rushes toward him. With a single fluid motion, he cuts the spell right out of the air. The mage is left speechless, watching his attack flicker out into nothing. Iam barely seems impressed, noting the magic is slightly better than what he's seen before. Eric realizes his subordinate isn't enough and prepares to step in himself. He charges up a lightning spear, determined to show off his real power. The lightning strikes down with a violent crack. Iam blade moves faster than the eye can follow. He cleaves the bolt of lightning in half, leaving the mages in total disbelief. They can't wrap their heads around what just happened. Cutting a spell shouldn't be possible. Eric quickly tries to save face, claiming Iam is just relying on some secret anti-magic tool. He scoffs that it's pathetic to rely on an artifact while acting so high and mighty. He demands to know where a commoner like him got such a high magic item. His crew notices people are starting to stare and suggests they get out of there. Eric backs off, giving Luna a deadline before he turns his attention back to Iam. He leaves with a smug warning that he'll be seeing them again soon. Iam doesn't wait for him to finish, grabbing Luna's hand to lead her away. Luna follows him out, still looking overwhelmed by the whole mess. They find a quiet spot near a fountain to finally talk. Luna looks down, clearly feeling guilty about dragging him into her problems. Iam asks if Eric is the real reason she was out in that forest in the first place. Luna takes a breath and agrees to tell him everything. Iam listens intently, offering to lend a hand however he can. She looks at him, confused why someone would go to such lengths for a stranger. Iam reminds her that she's been nothing but kind since they met. Luna blushes, insisting that she really didn't do all that much for him. He points out the small things, how she taught him about the country and serve him tea. Iam explains that to someone like him who's been reincarnated into this world with nothing but a sword, those small gestures of goodwill stand out in a world where mages constantly look down on swordsmen. To him, her pure kindness is more than enough reason to step in. He looks her in the eye, telling her he doesn't need any other motive to want to help. Luna looks down, finally ready to open up about her past. She tells him she was born in a small village not too far from the royal capital. Growing up, she was praised by everyone for having a natural talent for magic. Her father eventually went to the capital to try and start a new business. Iam asks if he was a great merchant, but Luna says it was much humbler than that. He just wanted to sell the specialty goods their village was known for. At first, things were looking up when he secured a contract with the Count's family. But then everything changed when the terms of the contract were altered without their consent. The noble house started demanding an enormous fee just for the use of the land. Every bit of revenue they made went straight into a debt that just kept growing. Ayam is visibly disgusted, calling out the clear injustice of a one-sided contract. Her father tried to protest, but in this world, commoners aren't allowed to oppose high nobles. He worked himself to the point of exhaustion until he finally collapsed. Ayam goes quiet, seeing exactly where the rest of the story is headed. Luna and her mother try to keep things going, but they were quickly reaching their limits. That's when Lord Eric of House Carter stepped in with his offer. He promised to ease their debt if Luna came to work at his house as a maid. Refusing to be trapped, she became an adventurer, hoping to earn enough to pay it off herself. But every time she tried to join a party, things mysteriously fell apart, likely Eric's doing. IMA realizes that Eric's true target was never the money, but Luna herself. He gently pats her head, acknowledging just how rough things have been for her. Luna finally breaks down, crying out that her father worked harder than anyone. She asks if being a noble really gives someone the right to trample over commoners like this. Ayam tells her that power isn't meant for oppression. It's meant to protect those who can't protect themselves. He looks back on his own life, having fought in countless battles over the years. In the end, it was always because there was something or someone he felt he had to protect. He admits he genuinely loves the sword and the thrill of a good fight. But the path of Bushido he follows also values gi, true righteousness. He draws his sword slightly, explaining that its purpose is to cut down cowardly and unjust acts. That is his way of life as a samurai, and he's going to use it to help her. Ayam then makes a surprising proposal. He suggests they form an adventure party together. Luna is caught completely off guard by the offer, her eyes wide with shock. Ayam vows to stand at the front and cut down any danger that comes their way. Luna realizes she no longer has any reason to be intimidated by Eric now that she has a partner. He places a reassuring hand on her shoulder, noting that questing is a way to strike it rich. Ayam looks at her with absolute certainty, promising that the two of them will be just fine. Luna wipes away her tears, feeling a surge of hope for the first time in a long while. She gives him a bright, genuine smile, admitting that his words are giving her a lot of confidence. Ayam tells her that a smile suits her much better than the troubled look she was wearing before. To himself, he admits that he'll likely end up having to fight Lord Eric eventually. He grips his sword tightly, silently, looking forward to the challenges that lie ahead. Luna declares that their new goal is to strike it rich, and Ayam asks if she has a specific plan. With newfound excitement, she suggests they take on a challenge she could never face alone, a dungeon. She can already see the two of them venturing into the dark depths and overcoming every monster they encounter. Ayami is puzzled by the unfamiliar term, but they soon arrive at the ominous, glowing entrance of a dungeon. The Adventurers Guild is packed with people looking for their next big score. Someone pulls a quest flyer right off the request board. Ayam and Luna check out a D-rank gathering quest to see if it's worth their time. It's a low-risk job, but Ayam seems like he was hoping for something a bit more challenging. Luna reminds him that they have to stick to their rank. He's only an F and she's a D. Ayam sigh and scans the busy room, agreeing to take the job. Luna heads off to handle the paperwork, while Ayam stays behind. The other adventurers are already whispering about him, calling him a bumpkin swordsman from the east. They joke that a killer like the Ripper will probably take him out before the day is even over. Suddenly, a silver-haired noble named Eric stops Ayam to talk some trash. Ayam doesn't flinch, telling the guy he only shows respect to people who actually earn it. Eric just laughs it off, clearly enjoying the chance to pick on someone he thinks is beneath him. Ayam brings up the unfair contract Luna is under, which immediately gets under Eric's skin. Eric sits back and reminds him that in this country, nobles and magic are absolute. He flashes a magic circle to show off, claiming nobles are the ones who protect and bless the commoners. Eric asks if the regular people shouldn't be more grateful for everything the nobles do. Ayam counters that having power doesn't give anyone the right to stomp on others. Eric ignores him, distracted by his creepy obsession with having Luna all to himself. Ayam stays focused, deciding then and there that he's going to help Luna pay off her debt. Eric mocks the idea, saying a mere swordsman thinking they can get rich in a dungeon is just a pipe dream. He leans in close, whispering a threat about accidents that tend to happen in deep dungeons. With one last warning, the noble walks away with a smirk. Luna returns with the paperwork, totally oblivious to the tension that was just in the air. The two of them start their trek through the stone halls of the dungeon. Ayami is impressed by how massive the entrance area is. Luna explains that the Arcadia dungeon is famous for being one of the toughest in the world. She mentions that things only start getting really dangerous once you hit the 20th floor. Past that point, Only high-rank adventurers are even allowed to step inside. I.M. notes that the rank system is a lot more solid than he initially expected. They start descending the stairs into the lower levels. Luna pulls out a pickaxe, reminding him they're just here to gather bronze or on the 10th floor. I.M. asks if they need a certain amount, but she says more just means a bigger reward. As they walk, I.M. asks Luna to give him a crash course on how magic actually works. She starts with the basics, the 5 main elements: fire, water, ice, lightning, and wind. She explains how those core elements form the foundation for almost every spell used today. Then there's non-elemental magic, like boosting your body or defending against mind interference. She explains that magic used to be complex, requiring long chants and magic circles. But as tools were developed, things were streamlined into wordless casting. It's why swordsmen lost their edge mages can cast faster than someone can swing a blade. Luna looks down, feeling the weight of how much the world has changed around them. She calls it a magic supremacist world where swordsmanship is seen as obsolete. I.M. tells her not to let it get to her, his hand resting steady on his hilt. Luna is in total awe, convinced that I.M. is someone who can truly rewrite the rules of this magic-heavy world. She spots the entrance to the next floor and tells him they should get a move on. I.M. pauses for a second, sensing that someone is lurking in the shadows and following their every move. They're quickly cornered by a group of goblins, those nasty little humanoid monsters that always travel in packs. Luna warns him to stay sharp, explaining that while they look small, they're incredibly cunning and well-organized. I.M. doesn't look bothered at all as he draws his sword and gets into a stance. He still feels those hidden eyes on them, so he decides to hold back his legendary Heavenator technique for now. He doesn't even need to fully draw his blade to leap up and deliver a flurry of precise strikes. He lands effortlessly, thinking to himself that this level of combat is exactly what he expected for the second floor. Behind him, the goblins are instantly torn apart, blood spraying everywhere as they fall. One of them is still trying to get up, and I.M. realizes these things are actually a bit tougher than they look. Luna explains that it's because of magic defense, the way monsters naturally use mana to harden their bodies. I.M. suggests he handle the front line while she stays back. But Luna isn't about to just watch. She chants a magic weakening spell, sending out ripples of light that wash over the remaining monsters. The goblins are hit by the curse, their movement slowing down until they're barely able to lift their arms. Without missing a beat, she casts body enhancement to give I.M. a massive boost in physical power. He feels the magic surge through his veins, genuinely impressed by how much of a difference her support makes. He flashes through the remaining goblins, his blade a blur as he clears the rest of the room. Luna is stunned, telling him he was so fast that her support magic probably wasn't even necessary. I.M. tells her she did a great job, which makes the poor girl blush and giggle like she's won a prize. In reality, he knows that without her weakening those monsters, the fight would have been a lot more of a chore. He reflects that a normal swordsman would have a really hard time breaking through that kind of magical defense. Luna looks at him with a mix of respect and curiosity, noting that he acts way more composed than someone his age should. I.M.E. just rubs the back of his head, lying about how he just grew up around a lot of adults. Deep down, he's thinking about his previous life, where he lived to be over 80 years old. Luna stops in her tracks, noticing that the floor has gone way too quiet for a place that should be packed with monsters. I.M. agrees, pointing out that he can't sense many presences around him anymore. Luna uses a scouting spell to check the surrounding area, and I.M. thinks it's a pretty clever use of magic. But the moment the results come back, the color completely drains from her face. She screams that a massive monster is charging straight for them, something that has no business being on this floor. Massive razor-sharp claws tear through the stone floor as the beast emerges from the darkness. The air gets heavy with bloodlust, and both of them look up at the towering threat. Luna panics, shouting that this is a high-rank monster that usually stays on much deeper levels. A legendary griffin looms over them, its glowing eyes fixed on its new prey. Ima just grins and gets a firm grip on his sword, more than ready to test his skills against something in a different weight class. Luna is the first to spot the monster, shouting out that it's a griffin. The massive beast screeches, its body crackling with arcs of magical energy. Aim steps in front of her and warns her to get back. It's far too dangerous. He draws his blade, ready to take on the creature himself. Luna isn't going to stand there. She prepares to cast a support spell. She hits with a body enhancement buff to boost his physical stats for the fight. The griffin dives at them, but Luna trusts her partner to handle the front line. I.M. notices that the beast is already covered in deep, bleeding gashes. He realizes the monster might have been lured here on purpose as some kind of trap. The beast lets out a deafening screech as it goes on the offensive. Ayam narrowly dodges a massive stomp that shatters the stone floor. He realizes this high-rank monster is on a completely different level than the goblins he's fought. The griffin lunges with his powerful beak, but Ayam stays focused. He clashes with the creature midair, sparks flying from the impact. He manages to deliver a direct strike, but it barely leaves a scratch on the tough hide. Ayam decides to stop holding back and prepares his Heaven Eater technique. He invokes the release, causing his blade to glow with an intense white aura. With the attack ready, he leaps forward to press his advantage. He launches himself into the air, closing the distance in a flash. A flurry of blinding white slashes rains down on the beast. Luna watches the exchange, breathless, as she cheers him on. Ayam reads the monster's movements perfectly, dodging another strike. He lands a massive horizontal blow across its front. Blood sprays as the griffin takes a heavy hit to its neck. Ayam clicks his tongue, annoyed that he didn't manage to decapitate it in one swing. He realizes his current physical body still has a lot of training to do. With one last motion, he finishes the beast and acknowledges it as a strong opponent. Luna is stunned that he actually beat a rank monster all by himself. Ayam sheaves his sword and reminds her that he promised they would win. He inspects the corpse and notices that those razor-sharp wounds weren't made by magic. He concludes that the creature wasn't at full strength when the fight started. He wonders if someone was intentionally toying with it to test him. Suddenly, a round of slow, condescending applause comes from the shadows. Master Light, known as Lord Eric, steps forward with his retinue. Luna is visibly shocked to see the noble standing there in the ruins. And doesn't mince words, accusing the man of sicking the griffin on them. Eric ignores the charge and offers a gentlemanly proposal instead. He wants to settle things with a one-on-one duel between them. Ayam stays quiet, listening to what the noble has to say. Eric reveals the stakes. If he wins, Luna belongs to him. Luna is horrified, protesting that she only came here to clear her debt. Eric's subordinate smirk, knowing Ayam's strength, is the only thing she has to rely on. Master Light makes it clear that he's the one Ayam will be dueling and that Luna is the prize on the table. He adds that Luna's support magic is strictly forbidden, framing it as a standard rule for a fair duel. The noble admits it's a 1,000,000,000 shot, but he tells Ayam he can name whatever reward he wants if he wins. He mockingly asks if he wants a mountain of gold or a title, confident it'll never come to that. Ayam's response is immediate. His only demand is to nullify the unfair contract imposed on Luna's father. Eric agrees with a smug grin, and a swirling magical energy begins to manifest around his hand. He activates a magic seal, declaring that with both parties' consent, the duel is now officially sealed. Ayam watches as a corresponding mark appears on his own hand, making the contract absolutely binding. The Sword Saint is eager to get started, clearly enjoying the position of power he holds. He calls the upcoming match a rabbit hunt and signals the beginning of the fight. High-voltage mana crackles between his fingertips as he warns his opponent to be ready to lose an arm. He summons a volley of lightning spears, sadistically telling Ayam that healing magic will keep him from actually dying. The golden spears rain down from the sky, homing in on the swordsman with lethal speed. Ayam reacts instantly, weaving through the projectiles as they shatter the ground around him. The noble laughs, impressed that Ayam is actually more than just some mediocre fighter. He fires off another wave of lightning spears to keep the pressure on his target. Ayam continues to dodge with incredible precision, frustrating the attempt to hit him. A massive blast engulfs the area, and Eric taunts him for being able to do nothing but run away. Luna grew up in a perfectly normal family, but unlike her parents, she was born with a rare talent for magic. Her parents were thrilled, and Luna herself started to believe she was destined for something huge. Being praised as a prodigy since childhood convinced her that her magic was truly incredible. But that dream shattered when she reached the royal capital and saw the kingdom's court mages. They were on a completely different level. Among them were nobles like Eric of House Carter, whose magic was so advanced, it made her feel like a total amateur. In this magic supremacist world, the nobles were absolute rulers who sat at the very top of the hierarchy. Things took a turn for the worse when her father fell seriously ill, and Luna knew she had to find a way to pay for his treatment. She felt terrible for putting her family through so much struggle just to keep her in school. That's when Eric Carter started pursuing her relentlessly, though to him, she was clearly just an object to be owned. Desperate for any kind of income, she wandered into the woods to take on a quest she had no business doing. Naturally, she ended up surrounded by dangerous monsters, and in those final moments, she regretted ever thinking she could make it alone. She was ready to give up, hoping her sacrifice might at least spare her family any further suffering. But then, a man appeared. I am Hojo stood before her with nothing but a sword in his hand. To Luna, he looked like he was glowing, and it was a moment she'd never forget for the rest of her life. She admired how firm I am was in his sense of self, even when facing off against a powerful noble like Eric. He didn't waste any time and immediately took down the griffin like it was nothing more than a pest. Hyam told Luna not to look so worried, confidently promising her that he wouldn't lose this fight. Luna could only watch in awe as his mysterious swordsman prepared to face the magic of a high-ranking noble. She clasped her hands together and prayed for his safety as the battle began in earnest. Eric didn't hold back, hitting Iam with a massive pillar of fire that swallowed him whole. The noble laughed hysterically, convinced that his attack had turned the barbarian into ash. But then the flames were suddenly split in two as I cut right through the magical energy. Eric's arrogant smirk instantly vanished when he saw his target was completely unharmed. Iam pointed his blade at the noble and declared that it was finally his turn to go on the offensive. Eric panicked, barely able to keep track of Iam's speed as he closed the distance in a flash. A heavy strike slammed into Eric's barrier, sending bright sparks flying as the noble struggled to hold his ground. Eric tried to keep up his superior act, warning Iam that he'd pay a steep price for attacking a noble. He started charging up a warning shot, tried to intimidate the swordsman into backing down. Iam didn't flinch. He just stayed low and kept the pressure on. Steel meant magic in a flurry of fast-paced clashes. Iam was pushed back by the force of an explosion, making Luna's heart sink as she watched from the sidelines. Eric stood tall and demanded an immediate apology, offering a fake chance at forgiveness. But Iam just brushed it off, calmly, stating that he'd already seen everything the noble was capable of. Eric just laughed it off, clearly enjoying the chance to torment someone he considered beneath him. The noble began gathering every bit of mana he had left for a final massive blow. In response, Aim prepared his own trump card, Amague, Release. His blade began to glow with a brilliant, intense light that seemed to eat away at the surrounding air. Eric unleashed a barrage of flame and lightning spears, certain this would finally end the fight. A storm of high-level spells rained down on the lone swordsman from all directions. Eric cackled, shouting that there was absolutely no way anyone could dodge an attack of this magnitude. But Iam didn't even try to dodge. He just stood his ground and prepared for a single swing. With one swift motion, he sliced right through the magical onslaught, completely deleting the spells and leaving Eric speechless. Iam stood tall, his sword glowing as the remains of the Heil magic evaporated around him. He looked completely unfazed, casually asking the noble if that's all he has to offer. Luna and the other mages were in total shock, having never seen anyone just block a spell like that with a hunk of metal. Iam didn't let up for a second, closing the distance in a blur before the noble could react. Eric tried to raise another defense, but it was already too late as a strike caught him right in the face. Blood splattered as the blow connected, shattering both the noble's pride and his barrier. Staring at the blood on his hands, Eric was in disbelief that a mere barbarian had actually managed to touch him. Iam followed up with a heavy kick that sent the noble flying across the stone floor. He stood over the elite, noting that guys like him are usually too high and mighty to be used to actual physical pain. Iam finally introduced his blade, the Demon Blade, Heaven Eater, which has the unique ability to devour any special power. He made it clear that magic was no exception to the sword's appetite. And the best part was that any power the blade devours can be redirected back at its original source. Eric was having a total meltdown, screaming that a tool with that kind of power couldn't possibly exist. Iam wasn't interested in his excuses. He just wanted to know if the guy was ready to give up yet. Clutching his wounded face, Eric was absolutely seething with pure rage and frustration. He warned the swordsman that if he kept this up, there would be dire consequences for crossing House Carter. The nobles started ranting about being a genius destined for greatness, refusing to accept defeat at the hands of a commoner. Iam just reminded him that he's only reaping the seeds of the feud he started himself. Eric completely lost it, shouting at Iam to shut up as he tried to muster whatever mana he had left. But Iam just kept slicing through his spells, dismantling the noble's pride with every calculated swing. He gave a guy one last choice: stand tall with his remaining pride, or just give up and fall. Eric was pushed past his limit, his eyes burning with pure hatred for the man who humiliated him. He decided to unleash a secret forbidden technique, the glowing patterns of the evil eye. Even his own mages were horrified, knowing that their boss was about to do something truly reckless. A dark purple energy began to pour out of Eric's eye as he prepared to bet everything on one last desperate strike. Eric Carter is losing his mind. He screams, "Release!" finally unleashing the seal on his evil eye of lightning as energy arcs wildly across his face. One of his followers warns him that using that I will literally kill him. But Eric's pride as a noble is worth more than his life. He refuses to be a laughingstock for the other 5 elemental houses. He activates lightning body armor, cloaking himself in high-voltage energy that turns him into a living electrical storm. He launches himself at Iam like a bolt of lightning, moving so fast that most people wouldn't even see him. Iam is genuinely surprised. He can barely track Eric's movement as the speed gap suddenly becomes astronomical. Eric is a blur of blue and gold, leaving a trail of electricity as he closes the distance in a fraction of a second. Iam tries to react, but the air is thick with electrical discharge as Eric circles him with ease. The noble is moving with such insane velocity that Iam's eyes can't keep up. "Take this," Eric screams, swinging his sword with enough force to shatter the ground beneath them. A massive explosion of fire and lightning follows the impact as Eric continues his frantic high-speed assault. He rains down a barrage of strikes, confident that his overwhelming magical power will crush the mere swordsman once and for all. But Iam isn't just defending. He activates Heaven Eater, a skill that starts siphoning the raw magical energy straight out of Eric's attacks. Lightning starts crackling along Iam's own blade as he prepares a thunderblade, ready to pay Eric back in his own coin. Eric is stunned. He never expected a barbarian like Iam to have a move that could absorb and redirect his own element. Iam slashes, the shockwave of the clash, tearing through the room as her 2 powers collide heated. Eric just grins through the chaos, his evil eye glowing with an eerie circuit-like pattern. As he prepares to ramp up the intensity, they lock blades, the screeching of steel and the hum of electricity filling the air. Iam realizes the truth that I isn't just for show. It's granting Eric god-tier reaction speeds, making it almost impossible to land a clean hit. Eric is feeling completely invincible now. Sure, that as long as his eye and armor are active, he's basically a god in this arena. He claims he's being forced to use his trump card, but he's more than happy to end things right here. He's practically cackling as he covers his eye, calling himself a genius who won't lose to anyone who lacks magic. I just smiles back. Honestly, this is the most fun he's had in a while. A real battle that actually sets the heart racing. Lina Grace watches from the sidelines, sweating as she realizes just how much Eric's physical stats have jumped because of that eye. Suddenly, a hooded mage named Raza steps up, casting a green support spell to tip the scales even further in Eric's favor. Lina is furious. This was supposed to be a fair duel, but the nobles clearly don't think the rules apply to them. She tries to step in and interrupt the spell, but she's not the only one looking to interfere. The mage captain, looking way too smug with those glasses, blocks her and tells her to stay quiet and be a good prize. Before she can even move, green vines of magic wrap around her, pinning her arms to her sides. She struggles against the binding, her only focus being to break that support spell before it makes Eric completely untouchable. Raza is shocked when Lina actually manages to crack the spell, clearly underestimating the noble girl's resolve. Iam notices the commotion, but he's a little busy with a guy who's currently a walking lightning storm. He knows he can deal with the magic, but Eric's reaction speed is the real problem. It's like Eric is sensing Iam's very life force, moving to counter him before he even starts a swing. Iam acknowledges that Eric is strong, but he's not about to let himself be surpassed. Eric just keeps laughing, daring Iam to try and hit a genius who can see the future. That's when Iam kicks into high gear, using Flash Step to vanish from the spot entirely. He reappears above Eric, his sword ready to deliver a strike that's too fast for any normal mage to track. But Eric is still one step ahead, shouting that he can see every single move Iam is making. He swings his arm, confident that his eye makes him untouchable no matter how fast Iam moves. Except Iam isn't there. He flickers out of existence just as the blow should have connected. Eric's face drops into pure shock as he realizes he's lost track of his target completely. He looks around frantically, feeling Iam's presence everywhere and nowhere at once. While the swordsman prepares to drop from above, Iam descends like a phantom, his timing so perfect that Eric is still swinging at the air where he used to be. He casually mentions that his sword style consists of 7 secret forms, and Eric is about to experience the third one firsthand. Empty cicada, with a blinding vertical flash of light, I cleaves through Eric's lightning defense and the space itself. Eric lets out a gut-wrenching scream as his right arm is severed, blood spraying everywhere as his noble pride is literally torn away. Iam lands with effortless grace, telling him to chill out since recovery magic can easily fix a couple of missing limbs. The mages who were secretly aiding Eric from the sidelines are frozen in terror, watching their powerful noble patron get dismantled. Eric clutches his bleeding stump, the agony and the realization that he's been completely outclassed finally setting in. Iam breaks it down for him that evil eye reacts way too fast, which actually makes Eric's movements predictable if you know how to set the bait. Eric is on his knees, trembling and sobbing in disbelief that a primitive swordsman could humiliate someone with his pedigree. Iam turns to Lina Grace, noting that it takes a certain kind of courage to admit when you've been beaten. But Eric is still spewing venom, cursing Iam, and calling commoners trash even as he's groveling on the ground. In a final, desperate burst of ego, he ignites his remaining power, his eyes glowing with a terrifying fiery intensity. But Iam doesn't give him a second chance, moving faster than the eye can follow to close the gap once more. The look of pure primal fear returns to Eric's face as the shadow of the swordsman looms over him. Iam has him pinned, his blade tip pressed right against Eric's throat as the arena falls silent. He asks if they're really going to keep this charade going, his voice devoid of any emotion. He's done with the duel and wants to know if the fight itself is actually over or if Eric still has more nonsense left. Eric starts hysterical threats about his father and noble family, promising that Iam will regret every single thing he's done. Iam just looks down at him with genuine pity. Is a family name really the only thing he has to defend himself with? He gets cold and serious, warning Eric that while he doesn't care for local politics, he knows for a fact that dead men don't talk. The threat is enough to make Eric's blood run cold, his eyes widening as he realizes his life is hanging by a thread. I raises his glowing sword, the purple energy humming with enough power to end the noble then and there. His gaze is as sharp as his blade, showing that he's not the type of person you can intimidate with empty words. Eric finally snaps and begs for mercy, promising to cancel the unfair contract on Luna's father, just like the duel agreement said. Iam isn't letting him off that easy, pointing out that since Eric cheated by bringing in outside mages, the stakes have just gone up. He forces Eric to swear that he will never again trample over the weak, making him repeat the vow while groveling in the dirt. A magic seal erupts around Eric as Iam overwrites the conditions, binding him to a contract that even his noble family can't break. Eric is left dazed and confused. He didn't even know it was possible for a non-mage to hijack and rewrite a magic seal. Iam doesn't stick around for questions, just offering a final cold farewell to the mage who thought he was a god. With one swift, decisive motion, he strikes, ending the conflict and leaving a lasting mark on the arrogant noble. A sudden flash of steel, and the fight is over before it really started. Eric Carter slumps to the ground, clutching his neck as blood spills through his fingers. M stands over him, cold and unmoved, as the noble stammers that he never intended for things to turn lethal. Realizing they're completely outmatched, the mages grab their lord and scramble back into the forest. Luna comes running out from the shadows, calling Iam's name in a panic. She crashes into him with a hug, thanking him over and over for coming to her rescue. Tears are still streaming down her face as she promises to find some way to repay the debt she owes him. Iam just gives her a head pat and tells her the fight was a decent workout for his blade. She smiles through the tears, knowing exactly how much he loves a good challenge. The adrenaline fades, but Iam's gaze remains fixed on the path the mages took. He thinks back to the griffin's wounds, realizing that Hacknobble wasn't the one who actually killed it. He tells Luna it's nothing as the local bats start to gather around the blood stains in the distance. A week later, the two of them finally arrive at a quiet rural village. Luna can't contain her excitement, shouting for her parents. The second her house comes into view, her mother steps out with a warm welcome, curious about the man traveling with her daughter. Iam introduces himself and makes sure to give Luna credit for being a huge help to him. The mom is immediately charmed, praising him for being so humble despite his obvious strength. She drops a joke about them being a couple, which sends Luna into a total blushing frenzy. The house is peaceful, though the mom mentions her husband is still recovering from his injuries. IMA brings up the debt situation, confirming he heard the unfair deal was finally terminated, but he's still worried if the magic contract used to trap them is truly gone for good. Luna shows off the sigil on her hand, explaining that binding contracts are absolute in this world. Since Iam won the duel, the terms were rewritten to set her family free. She explains that unlike simple curses, these magical laws can't be broken even in death. Her father is just relieved to have her back, thanking Iam for protecting her. Iam says he was just following his principles and repaying Luna for her kindness. The old man tries to hand over a small bag of savings as a token of gratitude. Iam refuses, knowing how much this family has already suffered under that debt. He tells them he's already planning to keep working with Luna as a partner anyway. If he won't take cash, the mom insists on throwing him a massive feast. He tries to decline, but Luna is already shoving him toward the dinner table. One bite of the local meat in Ayam is absolutely floored by the flavor. They all sit down to eat, finally enjoying a meal without the shadow of a debt hanging over them. The dad notes that Ayam's legendary skill reminds him of the fabled sword saint. Luna explains that even with magic ruling everything, there are still masters of the blade out there. Ayam's eyes narrow. Fascinated by the idea of a true supreme swordsman, he learns that while most rely on magic, common soldiers still stick to steel and spears. But the rumors say that even high-tier mages can't stand against the real sword saint. Ayam is sold. He's going to find this master and see how they stack up. That night, Luna mentions the saint is hidden deep in the Arcadia Great Forest. She adds that rumors are flying because they haven't been seen in public for a long time. Ayam just smiles at the campfire, feeling good about the path they're on. Luna mentions that her search magic is the one thing she's actually good at. She puts it to work in the field, calling out a group of monsters, closing in from the side. Ayami doesn't hesitate, activating his body enhancement to meet the threat heat in. With a few clean strokes, he cuts right through the pack before they can even snap their jaws. Ayam is genuinely impressed. Controlling multiple search spells while maintaining focus is high stuff. Later, as they cook over a fire, Luna admits she used to be pretty reckless when she traveled alone. She stares at her food, telling him that back when they first met, he felt like a savior to her. Ayam just gives a blunt, "I see," more focused on the fish in his hand than the heartfelt moment. She slumps her shoulders a bit, having fully expected him to be that dismissive. Ayam asks if she's really sure about this journey, pointing out she could have just stayed home until things settled. Luna lies back and smiles, confessing that adventuring has been a dream of hers for a long time. She looks toward the horizon, determined to see the world with her own 2 feet. Even as a child, she spent her days buried in books, imagining her own grand journey. Now she sees a clear path. Ayam on the front lines, and her supporting him from the rear. He tells her there will be a huge help, then tells her to get some sleep while he keeps watch. It doesn't take long for her to drift off, finally resting easy for the night. Ayam stays awake, staring at the alien sky and thinking about how some things never change, no matter the world. The next morning, they're back on the move. But the forest feels different. Luna stops in her tracks, looking genuinely worried as she tries to scan the area again. She points out that even though they're deep in the great forest, all the monsters have suddenly vanished. Ayam's eyes sharpen, and he tells her to use search again, spreading it as thin and wide as possible. Concentrating hard, she sends a massive pulse of magic through the ground. After a long pause, she looks up and shakes her head. Still absolutely nothing on her radar. Ayam realizes exactly what's going on. The silence in the forest is far too unnatural. He draws his blade, Heavenator, and prepares to release its power. In a sudden burst of speed, he lunges toward the empty space ahead of them. He strikes the air with a massive glowing slash. The entire forest view starts to shatter like glass, revealing the truth hidden behind the illusion. He explains that since he knew it was a barrier, he used his blade to devour the magic holding it up. Tucked away behind the spell is a hidden wooden house, the Sword Saint's home. Luna cautiously knocks on the door, calling out to see if anyone is inside. But before anyone answers, a man in a blue cloak appears right behind them. He greets them with a calm smile, admitting he was just a bit slow to respond to such rare visitors. Ayam's heart skips a beat. For someone to sneak up on him at this range is a terrifying show of strength. A High meeting of mages is in session, and someone is fuming that the heir of House Carter was beaten by some random swordsman. The word is that this guy came from an eastern country. One of the hooded figures wonders if the Sword Saint was actually behind it. They decide this eastern swordsman is becoming too much of a problem, and they need to find a way to test his true strength. The head of the Grace family, one of the 5 elemental houses, suggests sending some elite troops to handle the investigation. The other mages laugh, knowing he's just looking for an excuse to give his own daughter some experience in the field. Glar enters the room to report to his father, Lord Grace, about the recent developments. Lord Grace gives the order to use the Frost Core to confirm the swordsman's power and to eliminate him if he becomes a nuisance. The mage captain accepts the command with a chilling smirk, ready to prove the might of Magent. Meanwhile, Ayam, Hojo, and Luna have arrived at a secluded estate. Lionel Light, the Sword Saint, comes out to greet her rare visitors. Ayam doesn't waste any time, asking point blank if she's the one they call the Sword Saint. Liona doesn't deny the title. He follows up with a bold request. He wants to cross blades with her right here and now. Liona notices his katana and guesses he's a samurai from the Far East. She invites the group inside, so they can speak more privately. She leads them into her dojo, a quiet place dedicated to the path of the sword. Her student Lina Grace approaches with a cloth in hand, curious about who would come visiting at a time like this. When she hears I am is there for a spar, she's skeptical. In an era of magic, a dojo challenger is practically unheard of. Lina Light has some bad news, though. She's currently nursing an injury to her dominant arm and can't fight. I am is visibly disappointed. He didn't come all this way just to be turned away by a bandage. Seeing the tension, the blue-haired girl steps up and asks her master for permission to take the match in her place. She tells him she wants to test her own limits against a master with such an unusual style. Lina Light agrees, thinking it's a good opportunity for her student to face someone with Iam's level of skill. Iam has no objections. He's willing to take on whoever is ready to stand against him. He picks up a wooden practice sword, his stance shifting into something more focused. The girl drops her cloak, revealing her training gear. She introduces herself as Lina. Iam gives his name in return. As they square off in the center of the hall, Lina takes a hard gulp, trying to steady her nerves against his intense presence. The sword saint gives the signal, and the match officially begins. Lina lunges forward with a shout, putting everything she has into the first strike. Iam parries the blow effortlessly, his movements as fluid and precise as ever. He warns her that raw strength isn't going to be enough to win this duel. Even so, she refuses to back down, her determination flaring as she prepares to strike again. Iam notices a shift in her energy. He realizes she's using body enhancement magic to augment her physical limits. The spell is affecting her blade as well, a clever way to bridge the gap in their fighting styles. Iam welcomes the challenge, telling her to come at him with everything she's got. She charges in again, her movements bolstered by the glowing mana. The two of them exchange a rapid flurry of blows that echoes through the quiet dojo. Despite her magical boost, Iam remains perfectly calm, countering every strike with minimal effort. He can tell she's put in an incredible amount of training. Every swing of her sword feels heavy with experience. But it's still not enough. With a single sharp move, he disarms her and sends her wooden sword flying. The sword saint calls the match to an end before anyone gets hurt. Iam already has his practice sword held at her throat. It's a decisive victory. The girl catches her breath and concedes the match while her master praises her for such a solid performance. Lina Light thanks Iam for the match and begins to ask about the source of his incredible skill. Lina Light is curious about his background. She asks where he learned to fight like that. He just gives a short answer on a battlefield. Lina Grace is amazed. He read her reinforcement magic perfectly after just one brief exchange. He pushes her, pointing out that she's definitely hiding some more aggressive offensive spells, too. Iam wonders why such a precise mage would even bother with the sword. Her casting speed was way ahead of anyone he's seen so far. Even with her arm in a sling, Lina Light is fired up. She asks Ima if he'd care to face her in a match, too. He's already got his practice sword ready. He's been itching for a real challenge. They square off, and the sword saint makes the first move with a swift overhead strike. Aya stays calm, ducking under the blow with barely an inch to spare. She's impressed. Most people would have tried to block a strike from her, but he chose to dodge instead. She follows up immediately, her movement surprisingly fluid for someone with one arm out of commission. Ima can feel a strange weight behind her strikes. It doesn't feel like magic. It feels innate. He realizes he's dealing with someone who has pushed their physical limits to the absolute edge. After a few intense rounds, Lina steps back and admits she can't keep up. She's stunned that he held his own while only using one hand the entire time. He returns the compliment, telling her that even injured, her sword was magnificent. He's already looking forward to a rematch at full strength. Iam asks for her age, and she tells him she's 28. To reach that level of mastery before 30, most would call that the mark of a true genius. She admits she relies more on raw instinct than any set theory when she's in the middle of a fight. Iam shakes his head. He tells her bluntly that he didn't sense any talent in her style at all. The comment catches everyone by surprise, sounding like a sudden insult. He clarifies that her sword isn't built on luck or gifts, but on years of brutal practice and experience that goes beyond genius. He tells her she's walked the path of Ashura, a hellish road of effort. He's genuinely glad he got to meet someone like her. Lina Light smiles, admitting that it was her lack of natural talent that forced her to polish her skills through sheer effort. She has a favor to ask. She wants Iam to take over as Lina Grace's teacher. She thinks his perfected technique is exactly what her student needs to reach the next level. But Lina Grace suddenly bows her head and apologizes, saying she has to decline. Lina Light is confused. She doesn't understand why her student would turn down such a rare opportunity. Lionel Grace mumbles something about having family obligations that keep her from committing. Lionel light sigh, realizing that everyone has their own burdens to carry. IMA notices something else about the estate. He asks why she set up a barrier specifically designed to keep mages away. Lionel Light's expression darkens. She tells him that to explain that, she has to talk about a killer known as the Ripper. The mention of the name sends a chill through the room, leaving Iam and Luna completely wide-eyed. Master Light leads the group through his training grounds, finally bringing up the name everyone's been whispering about, the Ripper. Lionel Grace recognizes the nickname immediately, a notorious serial killer who's been specifically targeting high-ranking mages. Lionel Light, an associate of the Sword Saint, admits her injury came from a sudden sneak attack where the killer vanished in an instant. Iam Hojo studies her closely, asking if the wound she received was a clean, sharp slash. She confirms it, explaining that those precise cuts are exactly why suspicion fell on swordsmen like them. And now the kingdom's knights are on their trail. Hayama Hojo scans the room, realizing that why they're hiding behind a heavy anti-age barrier. Luna is baffled, wondering how Hayama Hojo even saw the barrier when it didn't trigger her magical detection at all. He casually tells her he doesn't need magic. He just uses his 5 senses. The girls can't even process that, looking at him like he's speaking another language. Lionel Light clenches her teeth, knowing she'll likely be executed for a crime she didn't commit, unless they find the real culprit. Master Light watches her with a heavy heart, fully aware of the magic supremacy world they live in. Iam Hojo offers his sympathy, but the woman just asks him to call her Light. She stares off, lost in thought, as the weight of the situation sinks in. Iam Hojo recalls the griffin he recently fought and how those wounds were far too sharp to have come from a normal blade. Lionel Light agrees, noting that the precision of the strikes is almost unnatural for a swordsman. She suspects the real Ripper is actually a mage using cutting magic to specifically frame martial artists. A dark silhouette looms over blood-soaked ground as the mystery of the killer deepens. As Iam Hojo and Lionel Grace prepare to leave, Lionel Light warns them both to stay very careful. Luna walks behind Iam Hojo, looking like something is weighing heavily on her mind. He stops and looks back, asking if she has something she wants to get off her chest. She immediately waves her hands in a panic, insisting everything is perfectly fine. Iam Hojo gives her a reassuring smile, telling her she's got a bright future with the sword. As they walk through the forest, Lionel Grace mentions how well he and the other Lionel seem to hit it off. He just shrugs it off, figuring the woman was probably just interested in his sword skills. Iam Hojo shifts the conversation back to the Royal Magic Knights, asking if they really are as elite as people say. Lionel Grace explains they're a group of specially selected, high-ranking mages who can cast powerful magic without saying a word. She looks genuinely spooked, saying the entire kingdom was terrified when one of their members was killed by the Ripper. Suddenly, Iam Hojo reaches back and stops Lionel Grace in her tracks. He shifts his grip on his sword, sensing a group of enemies closing in on their position. Lionel Grace doesn't hesitate, immediately casting a physical enhancement spell to back him up. Iam Hojo tells the hidden mages to stop playing games and just come out already. A group of hooded figures led by a man in glasses appears from the shadows surrounding them. The leader smirks, noting they masked their mana, but Iam still felt their bloodlust. He calls Iam Hojo a barbarian and mocks his wild instincts while his squad stays ready to strike. Lionel Grace trembles, wondering if these guys are actually the magic knights they were just talking about. The mage captain charges up a massive magic circle, telling Iam Hojo he stood out a bit too much for a simple swordsman. He decides it's time to hammer down the nail that's sticking out. Ice Spear. He launches a barrage of massive ice shards directly at them. Iam Hojo doesn't even flinch, swinging his blade with enough speed to shatter the incoming magic into a million pieces. The mages are absolutely stunned, unable to believe a barbarian could just cut through their magic. The mage captain doesn't lose his cool, though, amping up his power to pick up the pace of the battle. Iam Hojo leans into his charge, prepared to cut through whatever else they throw his way. The hooded mages are frozen in absolute disbelief. How can a mere barbarian block a concentrated magical assault with nothing but a sword? Avalanche. The mage captain screams the command, and his subordinates pull their mana together to double down on the ice spell. But Iam Hojo doesn't even flinch, meeting a massive wall of frost heat in and cleaving it apart with a single glowing strike. The mage captain grits his teeth, his arrogance finally cracking as he realizes he's up against more than just a simple swordsman. He pulls out a set of magic crystals, channeling his frustration into one final desperate attempt to end the fight. He unleashes a violent ice storm, whipping up a frozen hurricane that threatens to tear everything in its path to shreds. I Am Hojo looks on with cold eyes, noting that while the reconnaissance squad has no obligation to stay, he certainly isn't letting them leave after this. He grips his hilt and whispers, "On the game." Release, focusing his intent into the steel. A massive wave of energy explodes outward, instantly dispelling the blizzard and sending the mages flying. The hooded subordinates cower in the wake of the shockwave, terrified by the sheer power of a move they've never seen before. I Am Hojo stands in the center of the clearing, casually asking if they have any other tricks they'd like to try. Realizing they're outmatched, the mage captain retreats, smirk returning as he claims they've already obtained all the data they need on him. They vanish into a blur of blue light, leaving behind a chilling promise that he'll soon understand the true essence of magic. Once the force is quiet, Luna asks about the mages, and I Am Hojo admits he doesn't know who they were, but they'll likely be back. Sometime later at the guild, the atmosphere is electric with rumors about the mysterious newcomer who single-handedly took down a griffin. People are whispering that even Eric of the Carter family couldn't stand against him, and the materials he brought in were top grade. A few seasoned warriors scoff, finding it hard to believe a rookie could solo a high-ranked monster like that. Risa, the guild receptionist, pops her head up and apologizes for keeping him waiting while they process the harvest. I Am Hojo gets right to the point, asking if the exchange for the griffin materials is finally finished. Risa slams a heavy, bulging bag onto the counter, the clink of gold coins echoing through the hall. Luna's jaw drops as she stares at the mountain of gold, completely overwhelmed by how much the monster was actually worth. Risa explains that the payout is roughly enough to buy a luxurious mansion right in the middle of the capital city. She goes on to say that since it wasn't a designated quest, his status is being reassessed by the higher-ups. Considering he soloed a high-ranked beast, he'd normally qualify for rank, but given this was his first quest, they're settling for something else. She tells Luna and I Am a Hojo that the decision from above is to certify him as an A-rank adventurer for now. I Am Hojo is thrilled, realizing that A-rank status finally gives him the clearance he needs to go below the 20th floor of the dungeon. The news sends shock waves through the guild hall as the crowd realizes they're looking at a promotion speed that hasn't happened since the Sword Saint himself. After finishing up his business, I Am Hojo prepares to take his leave as Raza bids him a warm farewell. But before he can go, she leans over the counter and slips him a small slip of paper with her personal contact information. She knows that things can be tough for a lone swordsman, and Luna looks on with a pout, clearly not liking the special treatment. Raza gives him a polite nod, happy to help a talented new face, while Luna can't stop staring at the card. Elsewhere, Lina Grace gallops through the moonlit forest on her way home, her mind still racing with the events of the day. She thinks about how Master Light's sword was like a flawless, unmatchable work of art, but I Am Hojo's power felt like something else entirely. She reaches the gates of her massive estate, reflecting on how he reached his level through pure effort and experience rather than just innate genius. She sighs as she slips back inside, knowing her position as a noble daughter normally wouldn't allow her to pursue the path of the sword. As she enters the hall, her mother welcomes her back, marking the end of another secret training session. Lina Grace steps forward, revealed to be the eldest daughter of the Grace family, one of the 5 most powerful magical lineages in the kingdom. Thanks so much for watching. Like the video, and I'll catch you in the next.